Final thoughts before draft weekend starts tomorrow. I'm ready for whatever. And if the Vikings are going to trade up for a quarterback, then picks 2 and 3, to me, that's the sweet spot right there. That's the most likely window to make that happen. Otherwise, if it falls past that marker, I would expect the Vikings to trade down. And as we get closer to tomorrow, I'm starting to get the sense that all of us in Vikings Nation may end up waiting it out only for the Vikings not to make a pick at all on Thursday night, to where the Vikings draft would officially start on day 2, Friday. Anything's possible. And that includes what I believe will be at least one player trade, maybe not necessarily day 1, but at some point over the weekend. And I talked about this yesterday. It surfaced today through ESPN, in which, according to ESPN, sources believe the Dolphins could get aggressive in attempts at a Dalvin Cook trade if the Vikings make him available. To that I say, what's the holdup? Kwesi Adofo-Mensah was non-committal when asked about Cook's future on the team. You just re-signed Alexander Mattison. And it's not like we're talking about, say, Danielle Hunter, who plays a premium position, which if that were the case, I'd understand the long game, let the bidding war play itself out. But we're not talking about an edge rusher or a quarterback or left tackle. We're talking about a running back. There's no bidding war happening here. In fact, the only team that's been consistently connected to a possible Dalvin Cook trade has been the Miami Dolphins, which is really fascinating that this is still a thing after the re-signing of Jeff Wilson Jr. and Raheem Mostert. Still, the Dolphins are interested in Cook? What are we waiting for? We're talking about a running back. Maybe you can get a fourth, at best a third. But of all the trade candidates in Minnesota, to me, Dalvin Cook, this is the easiest decision of them all. Look at the position. Miles Sanders, 5th in rushing last year. Contract ended. Philly, they let him walk, no stress. Dalvin Cook, 6th in rushing. Wonderful. But in today's league and beyond, running backs are the equivalent of pizza. I can appreciate if you make your own dough, house-made pizza sauce, fresh-cut mozzarella. But if you're going to charge me $20 or more for a pie, no thanks. I'll pass. I'll go to Domino's or Pizza Hut. Yes, there's going to be a drop-off, but the gap is slim. Either way, I had a good dinner and I'm satisfied. So knowing that information, wherever I'm going to save the most money, that's where I'm going to go. That is supply and demand. By the way, folks, welcome back to the Fat Podcast. Good pizza. Is it available? Yeah, it's all over the place. Okay, where can I go to get it at the best cost? That's the running back position today. Dalvin Cook, 6th in rushing. Great. $14 million cap hit next year. No thanks, I'm super good. There's a team that reportedly really wants to make a trade happen. It's a no-brainer. I make this move yesterday. Oh, well, whatsoever will you do without Dalvin Cook? You've got Alexander Mattison. You have Ty Chandler in his second year. You have Kene Nwangu. None of them equates to the talent of Dalvin Cook, sure, but in the grand scheme of things, it's more than enough to get by. Look at the Chiefs last year. They drafted Isaiah Pacheco in the 7th round. That cheap of an investment, that's a frozen pizza at your local grocery store. And in the Super Bowl, averaged 5 yards per carry and got a touchdown to help Kansas City win. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, I can tell he puts massive thought into every move that he makes. And I can appreciate that. However, not everything has to be an AP calculus formula, especially not for a $14 million pizza pie. Make the trade. It's going to be okay. And now for the final mock draft of this channel. Did, as far as representing Team Tradeback, traded pick 23 with the Philadelphia Eagles for picks 30 and 62. Also added a 2024 6th rounder, which, whatever, it's a throwaway here. Pick 30, the Minnesota Vikings select Mozzie Smith, defensive tackle from Michigan. 62, doubled up on the interior defensive line, Keanu Benton out of Wisconsin. 87, Dion Henley, linebacker from Washington State. So really loading up on the defensive side of the ball with your first 3 picks. At pick 119, Xavier Hutchinson, wide receiver from Iowa State. I think between him and DeMarvion Overshown, the linebacker out of Texas, they could be the biggest sleepers of this draft. Hutchinson, to me, is a day 1 wide receiver too. He's that damn good. At pick 158, Jaren Hall, your project quarterback. And finally, at 211, Jake Moody, kicker from Michigan. Give Greg Joseph some competition in training camp. What, you thought your job security was sweet? With an 87% extra point conversion rate? Nah, fam, you're going to have to compete for that today. But there you have it, the final mock draft for this YouTube channel. Mozzie Smith, Keanu Benton, Dayon Henley, Xavier Hutchinson, Jaren Hall, and Jake Moody. And now to the comments. Nicholas Jones says, I would rather for us to stay at 23 or trade back to the end of round 1. And I would draft Hendon Hooker. I think that's the right move unless the extreme happens and we can get Bryce Young. I'm with it. I wouldn't be upset at that. Now, I'm a big Hendon Hooker guy. I've talked about him plenty on this channel. At first, he was projected to go in the 3rd round. Now, it's looking like he's going to go in the 1st. I would rather try to get him in the 2nd. The mock draft that I just talked about, he was gone in the 1st. I forgot who selected him. I would go defensive line or wide receiver after trading back from 23. But if you go Hendon Hooker, okay, fine. And if Bryce Young is available at picks 2 and 3, absolutely, you make that happen. Next comment by Brenton Atkins. Will Levis at 2 would be a complete and total disaster. Absolutely. If the Vikings trade up for Will Levis and they take him at 2, I don't know what I'm going to do, man, because you're talking about giving up at least 2 future 1st-round picks. This man better be Aaron Rodgers, but better, if you're going to trade up that damn far. But I will say this, though. This extends to Hendon Hooker as well. And I promise I'm not hedging when it comes to Will Levis and Anthony Richardson, because I don't believe in any of those 2 guys at the next level. But if you don't trade back and any of those quarterbacks are available at pick 23 or even better, you trade down end of the 1st round and any of those players are still there and you want to take them, let's say at pick 30, okay, go ahead and do that. That is the least amount of risk that you can take in selecting one of those guys versus trading up and giving multiple 1st-round picks. That's okay. In that instance, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. You just failed on a 1st-round pick, not 3 of them. And lastly, Jared Preble says, if we somehow traded up and got Bryce Young, that'd be wild. He and Justin Jefferson for the next 10 years? Yes. Now, you need a couple of things to go right. And I talked about this yesterday, the off chance that this happens. I give it 0.5% of it actually becoming reality. But you need a couple of things to go right if you're the Minnesota Vikings. You need, first off, the Carolina Panthers to be dumb enough to take Will Levis with the 1st overall pick. You then need Houston to either trade down, be open for business with the number 2 pick, or take CJ Stroud and Bryce Young still be available at pick 3, in which case the Arizona Cardinals, I think they're going to trade out of 3 no matter what. But if this happens and the Vikings get Bryce Young, Jared, it's going to be a party, man. Absolutely.